Take 11. This is Magog, and if you'll notice the hat on my head, this is to make up for my trademark bad hair. This is going to be a bad viewing, and if I'm going to look bad, I'm going to look terrible. This week's MMA review, we are covering UFC Fight Night, Maia vs. Shields. Not because I don't want to talk about the Bellator show that's coming up this Friday, just every time that I've done this I've done so bad I've wanted to pick up this laptop and break it over my own damn head out of frustration, so I'm going to try and narrow this as small as possible, and it's still going to run probably long for someone who's really not used to doing this. Now, I'm going to focus on a handful of fighters because it's a Brazilian card, not because it sucks, just because there's a lot of Brazilians and I might know who they are by face, but the names throw me off. It takes a while to learn, like a Fabricio Verdun, a Rousimar Palhares, Jacare de Souza, until they get burned into your skull. Vanderlei Silva, so forth and so on. First on deck, we are actually going to be talking about Mr. Tokiento Rousimar Palhares versus Mike Pierce. Some of you may fail to give a shit, but this may as well is going to be a loser leaves town fight for either fighter. And you guys seem to like misery. Rousimar has been a bit of a skid, and his next fight would equal 3 losses straight. Not to mention, I believe he pissed hot versus Hector Lombard. Mike Pierce, while he's been finishing lately in the bulk of his fights, he's more resembled John Fitch and Akami than the exciting stock of the UFC. Mike's a bit more in shape, and I've never seen him tap. This was Palhares' weight cut. I'm not expecting great things from Palhares in this fight. Fabio Maldonado versus Joey Beltran will be the second fight that we're covering. Again, we might have another loser leaves town fight. Probably actually really going to happen in this fight. Fabio is 1-3 in his last 4 fights, whereas Joey is 1-3-1, with that one being a no contest for pissing hot versus Igor Pekrajic. Now I think even with a basic wrestling talent, which Joey has, he can beat Fabio. But it's in Brazil, and sometimes that equals quick stand-ups for the hometown and fair will decisions. I got Joey. Not by a lot. In a year from now, I will shit myself if either of these guys still has his job in the UFC. And I don't necessarily mean it as a knock. I actually like Joey Beltran. I don't really see anything on a Fabio on a ground game wise that ever got him there in the first place. The next fight I don't have too much written for, just because it pretty much explains itself if you know anything. Thiago Silva is fighting Matt Hamill. Matt Hamill barely got by Roger Hollett. It was very dull and uninspiring. Hamill fought a guy who basically really had absolutely nothing as a fighter, and he just barely squeaked by. Thiago's done very well, and he's fought a higher grade talent. I expect Thiago not only to win, but finish the fight, probably sending Matt back into retirement, regretfully. I hope he's not going to be out on the street, and I can only assume he's come back to fighting because he needs the money, because he certainly doesn't seem like he has the passion for it. Could be wrong, though. That could be a big upset. Eric Silva versus Dong Hyun Kim. If I had to pick one fighter to really give you a push and tell you this guy's going to be big, is Eric Silva. He beat Jason High, who's actually a really good wrestler from what I saw over in Strikeforce, and he did so easily. He actually got through Charlie Brenneman. Charlie's kind of like a poor man's Ben Askren. He's very finesseful, very skillful. Eric Silva has beaten... he's shown the ability to get by wrestlers, whereas Dong Hyun Kim, he's mid-level in his takedowns. I kind of don't have a lot of respect for the judo players in today's mixed martial arts. The discipline has not aged well with the sport, outside of Ronda Rousey, who I will bitch about when I get enough confidence to stop sounding like a fucking retard, but we'll wait. Next is the main event, which will be Damian Maia versus Jake Shields. This is one of those kind of fights where you think about it, and it's going to be one of those, oh, that's going to be so badass until you watch it. You can talk and talk and talk, oh, I appreciate the ground game, and it's going to be exciting, and it's going to be this, and it's going to be that. And it's really going to be a homework assignment. if you really give a shit about rankings, if you really want to see who's on deck to go for a title shot, Damian Maia has looked amazing and exciting. He strangled Rick Story unconscious. He blew through Dong Hyun Kim, whether you want to call that a fluke or not. He sent John Fitch back down to the minor leagues. And Jake Shields has done enough to put himself in a position to give Dana White a headache, which is admirable, but we don't get anything out of Jake Shields winning except for probably... Oh no, that really does sink the division, doesn't it? I mean, let's suppose George St. Pierre beats Johnny Hendricks. What's left? Seriously, there's literally nothing else to do with the division. You have Rory McDonald, who's going to be a top contender, but if he refuses to fight for the belt, 170 basically stagnated, and they're going to have to start to try and pull a name out of a hat at that point. We'll get another Dan Hardy contender. But hey, what can you do? Well, it's been fun talking to you. I think I screwed up the least this time. I can be pretty damn proud of this one, or at least less ashamed. Tear me apart. Have a good one.